Welcome, everybody. Today is my very first podcast for the smaller producer type thing. And today I'm really happy to introduce my first guest, which is Aspect. Say hello.
Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Aspect.
Yeah, it's so yeah, just so everybody knows, like I'm not a journalist, and I'm also not a reporter. So give us a little bit of leeway and stuff. We love the interaction and stuff, and I would always appreciate if you guys participate in means of like asking questions because right now we have an opportunity with an amazing artist to answer things that may have been something that you guys have been trying to figure out for a really long time. So, Aspect, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to kind of, dive into this project with you. Um, I would say that you found me or stepped into my channel not too long ago and showed us some really cool music from, I think, like a producer feedback stream. And I was immediately kind of captivated by the kind of stuff that you make. So, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your music and what you're about.
Yeah, I was watching you for a while. I found you through like neural production tutorials because I've always wanted to make that kind of music for like a really long time. I never like figured it out. So that's how I found you. And I didn't know that you streamed until like probably a couple months ago. I just hopped in and then it's like, wow, this is actually a really good community and are actually teaching really good things like and live so I could talk to you.
Thanks, man.
So I'm really focused on like improvement. Like I started producing 3 years ago, so I've improved a ton in a very short period of time. And like you are like the most efficient way that I found to like improve my shit. So it's like
The
that's that.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. I one thing that I do tend to brag about, not with myself, but honestly just with the community is like just how strong of a relationship that we've kind of brought together, not just like with this channel or the Discord, but just with Twitch in itself. And there's so many amazing producers that are on this community that it really blows me away. So I feel almost like yeah, I set the platform up for people to come to, but I almost feel like I found you all through this whole endeavor.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is and that's part of the reason why like I'm happy to have you on here is because we're all kind of on the same path of like learning, and no matter how much you know, I guarantee somebody always has something to teach you. So I love being the student more than I like being the teacher.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, like what's your focus right now in music? What do you have, like an EP coming out, or are you just kind
Yeah.
of working on tunes or?
My focus is to write albums that tell a story. So right now I'm working on my first album, my second total release. My first EP was Visions, and it was pretty good, but it was like all my music from like years ago. So like this is like representative of where I'm at right now. It is called Light Spirit, and it is really good. Trust me.
I
It'll be
mean,
coming out pretty soon.
yeah, man. I mean, I've already heard a lot of the tunes that you've played, and if you guys haven't, the link is over here, kind of on the rotating banner. I really suggest that you guys go check that out. But yeah, this is super exciting. So what do you want to show us today?
All right. Well, I want to like kind of break down, but not like super break down. I don't we'll see how it goes. But I want to explain this project file because I'm super proud of it. This is for Astral Grove. I'll play like the first half of it when we get to it, in case people here haven't heard it, which maybe whatever. But
Right.
I think I did some really interesting and like creative things here that I struggled for like a really long time figuring out like how I wanted to do things. So
Cool.
I just want
Yeah.
to try to explain and help people to find themselves, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that are like honestly beyond teaching people about sound design. One of the most important focuses and something that I want to do a project on later. I just don't have like the footage to do it. Is how to find yourself in your artistry, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things that is so taboo, that is relatively so subjective, that people don't really talk about because it's one of those like, oh, everyone's path is different. But I believe that there's some kind of like awareness building on top of that that will kind of help you identify yourself as, for one, who you are, but what you want to represent within your media, or medium. Because it doesn't even have to be music, it can be anything that you choose to express yourself in.
Well, yeah, with releasing music on SoundCloud, there's a lot more to it than just releasing the music. Like, what people don't realize is that like the title contributes, your name contributes, the art contributes, the description contributes, everything comes together to have to make a complete like a complete project. It's like just having good music isn't is it's enough sometimes, but like if you have this entire aesthetic building up around it, that's what I love. And like that's what I find is like a lot of people are missing, like a lot of these smaller artists.
Now, do you feel like that's something that kind of coincides with, I guess in some way it has to, but with like your brand, or is it more so of like just presenting yourself as the entire complete package of an artist, you know, because I think that like the first thing that when we talk about labels and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, you're a musician and stuff, but from what it sounds like, I feel like you have so much more to offer beyond that.
Yeah. For me, it goes, I guess brand is like the word for it, but like how I feel it is kind of different. So like what I consider, what I think is cool about my music is that I sort of, this is probably unique to me, but I do a lot of, I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm our party's dungeon master. So I write the whole world. I write all the intricacies of it, all the little small things. So I take that world and I adapt it around my music. So like every single song I write, it's not about like me or my feelings. It's about a place in that world somewhere, and they all connect together, create this big interconnected world. And that's just like that's how I produce. Like when I'm making my albums, like I'm telling a story like straight through, and it's like there is a
Yeah.
written story to it, but it's up to interpretation. And like
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you actually mentioned that because one of the questions that I actually had for you was like, how do you perceive sound and your relationship with music within it? You know, so I know that you just kind of explained that, but is there anything that you can elaborate on that? And maybe for somebody out there who's trying to do the same thing of like,
yeah,
you
I
know,
got stuff to say.
yeah, yeah, go give it to us.
So when you have like when I'm talking about like interconnected worlds and like aesthetics and stuff, there's a really old Soccer Burst video. It's Soccer Burst is my number one inspiration, by the way. She is like I learned from her videos so hard years ago, but there's a deleted video that I still like have memorized that she was talking about like creativity and music and how to make an album. And like what you want to do is when you're making like a bigger project than just a one-off single, you want to like sort of make a batch of sounds that all fit together in like the same world. So for me, I have this like pad sound. Let me find it in here. I have this pad sound that I've used in like almost every song on this album. I think it's this one. But like it's pitched up in the actual thing. I don't know if that's quiet, but like it's just really like ethereal pad sound. I'm just reusing this sound in like pretty much every song, just like at different pitches and like different styles of it to sort of like tie everything together. And like I'll use like similar samples and in Visions, I had a sample. It was a sound font from Twilight Princess that was like this choir slash string slash synth. I used that in like almost every song, just processed really differently and like tied everything together.
So, so really, like, if and correct, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
the ideology behind this is kind of choosing or figuring out some kind of theme that you can place within every song. Why don't you tell us a bit about your name?
All right, I shall. All right, so aspect, the name honestly is I picked it 'cause it's a cool word. I am a big fan of modded Minecraft. This is the 100% unfiltered truth. I am a massive modded Minecraft player. I have been for the past 10 years. There is a mod called Thomcraft. It is my favorite mod of ever created. The like the central thing of it is these things called aspects, which make up the whole world. Like so there's like Infernus, there's like fucking there's like a Latin name for every single like thing that makes up the universe. So I just like took that word because I liked it.
Yeah, well, no, that makes sense, you know, and I feel like a lot of people's names with that, like, well, some people just make up like crazy names, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like with a lot of people that are into this kind of music and what this kind of music is relatively subjective. But like even for me, like with the whole alchemy thing, like it's very similar in the sense of like how do you take these different unconventional ways of or ingredients or you know sometimes people say aspects or you know different things to kind of create the stuff that we do today, you know.
Yeah. And also another thing, my name is lowercase because the music isn't about me. It's more about the location that the song is in. So like let's like aspect song name or like aspect Astral Grove. Astral Grove is capitalized, but aspect is not because it's not about me. And I don't want it to be about me. So
Yeah.
it's like that's just how it is.
So in regards to that, are there any like particular songs that you have that have this like I know that you said that it's not really about you, but like how did that whole ideology of that come about? I know that you said that it's about the story, but what like I'm wondering if there was something that
Yeah.
happened to you that was so impactful, or was it because of your role within the Dungeons and Dragons about how you can't really make it about you, or was it something bigger, or
it's probably just my music taste and how it evolved. So like I got really into Porter Robinson and Soccer Burst like the same exact time. So that was Porter Robinson's Worlds album and Soccer Burst Deconstructing Nature. I listened to them straight through, first track to the last one, over and over and over again. Like the story in between them, even if there like wasn't really a story intended, like I create one in my head. And it's like that's what I wanted to like recapture. It's like a lot of like music I listen to, like some albums, I don't want to call anyone out, but like some albums are just like 10 singles that are just tied together under an album. But like
Right.
with Porter Robinson and Soccer Burst, every song is interconnected. They're all within the same like sort of universe, and they have similar sounds between them, and it's just really cool. And I just wanted to do that.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because you're not the first person to actually, well, to me anyways, you're not the first person to bring this idea up. Have you
Yeah,
heard of Hudson Lee?
yeah, I have. I like him
So
a lot.
yeah, he's a really cool guy. He's really young too. How old are you, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
20.
Okay, so you guys are the same age actually,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's a producer from Canada, and I actually, no shame, but like I have taken lessons from him, and he talked about the same thing for one with the idea of thematics, and also just trying to use those ideas of taking everything. For you, it seems like it's more in the perception of sound, although I don't think it's exclusive to that. But the way that he described these things was in the way of taking motifs or taking like these little small riffs and stuff. And a key example of that he was describing to me was John Hopkins from one of his albums.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of him or not. He's more so on the side of like ambient house or so in one way or another.
Yeah, I've listened
But
to him a bit, not too
yeah,
much.
if it, he really before he even let me take a lesson with him, he was like, "Listen, we can't we can't do this unless if you listen to this entire John Hopkins album, and then we can talk." And so that was kind of like my pre-homework for that.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think that one of the questions that I had for you is like, where do you think that like music in the future is going? But the more and more that I talk to more producers like yourself and like, him, especially for the people that are a little bit younger than, well, for me personally, I'm 28, but I think that people are really starting to dial in on the idea of doing more with these crazy sounds that we're making as opposed to just making, these bangers and stuff. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that like especially with the kind of music that you make and the kind of music that he makes, it's going to make this so much more memorable.
absolutely.
In
Like to go off that too, more about like how we don't want to just make bangers anymore. Is that was definitely true at the time. Like when I was getting into the tutorial space, it was like everybody was trying to just make like rhythm basses, and it's like I don't want to do that. Like yeah, they sound cooler, but like how do I use this in context? And when I was sitting there looking for inspiration, I'm listening to Porter Robinson's 1 hour long live set where every song is like it's like an emotional banger. Like it's
Yeah.
it's not just like for the sake of going hard. Like I don't know, there's like a lot behind. It's hard to explain, but there's like a lot behind what he put into his music. And
No, I think you and I are both trying to avoid the cliche of like the whole journey thing, of like,
yeah,
oh, it takes you on a journey or whatever. And
but like
because
it does.
it does,
Like
yeah.
I listen to Virtual Riot and I listen to Virtual Self for two different reasons.
Right.
Similar sounding artists, like Virtual Riot, I'm trying to go hard when I'm walking down the street. I'm listening to Porter Robinson stuff. I'm trying to like cry at the club, dude. I don't know.
I'm
Like
trying to cry at the club. Amazing. But it goes hand in hand too, though. And now these days, with us kind of evolving, I have a friend, and they're a classically trained pianist, and I was talking to them about. I feel like we're kind of in the midst of this like musical renaissance of where people are starting to make more like, I almost want to say electronic symphonies within sound, as opposed to just a single, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus.
yes.
Maybe it's because as we age or as the time moves forward, we get more ADD about listening to music and stuff. But at the same time, like we have these like really beautiful ideas that we can implement into a single space, and to me, that's like pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely where me and my friends and my community are going. Because like we kind of like branched off the Soccer Burst community. Because like years ago, she would make like 7, 8 minute long tracks that like just blew you away. She's like moved away from that music, so we're kind of like filling the gaps with our own creations now. And it's like it's just so cool to see this evolve.
Yeah. Have you I'm sure that you've heard of the Glitch Mob, right?
Yeah.
Have you listened to he's one member from that group, Edit. He made an album called Crying Over Pros for No Reason. It's an IDM album, but it's so like it's not necessarily like story driven in that way with the narrative or whatever, although
Yeah.
all of the songs are thematic, but the creativity with that and like I feel like he does not get enough credit for the same stuff that you're talking about with like Sakura Burst and stuff because it's just so different and he moved away from it. And on one end I'm really sad about it and nostalgic about it, but on the other end, I guess like look at how much success he's had with the Glitch Mob.
Yeah. Everyone takes a different path. It's whatever.
Yeah, as long as you enjoy making what you make, then who cares, right?
Yeah.
We good on sound?
Let's test it.
I'm still not hearing anything on my end.
Oh, I'm waiting. No, there's an option that I have to do. Hold up.
Oh, right. Are you doing share computer sound?
I've clicked the button. We are ready.
Okay. One more
I'm
time.
going to talk about the project file now.
Cool.
Working?
Yeah, everything's
Okay, that was my fault.
all good. All good.
I'm gonna just like let this play for a bit because some people in here probably haven't heard it. I'm gonna be talking a lot about at least the first half of this song. That. So this is Astral Grove, the project file. I always it's kind of organized. It probably looks like a mess to other people, but to me, like everything makes sense.
I mean, it doesn't seem like your tracks aren't named or whatever, but it seems like everything is placed. Like I'm looking right now at like your musical components are kind of in one place. It looks like your drums are all organized in a single place. And I mean, to be honest, like
make it look neat.
I think that like organization of tracks is important to a point, but yeah, man, guys, can you believe that he's been producing for less than 3 years? Like, what the fuck?
All right.
What do you eat for breakfast?
All right, so I want to talk about the intro because this is really cool. So like these pads that lead in, I said that these are the pads that I'm like reusing all throughout the EP, or not the EP, the album. This is an album. Well, there's an interlude song directly before this that I've been working on like on and off for 2 years that uses these exact same pads. So it's like a 100% completely seamless transition from song to song. Like this fade in is like work in progress because it's like this just flows. There is no fade in the final cut. It's like this. When I write chords and stuff like this, it's pretty arbitrary. I remember when I was starting out, I had like no clue. I'm like, where do I start with writing chords? Like this, I just did things. Like this is written in F sharp major, but like I didn't even start in the F sharp. I started on D sharp just because like whatever. Like the hardest thing is to realize that like you could just do things and just have fun with it. But what's really cool actually is the drop. So like this is what I wanted to talk about the most. So there's like these huge swells in the drop that are just like, it's this massive cool layering thing. And like a lot of people ask me, they're like, how did you make these pads? The thing is they're not really pads. They're like, it's almost entirely strings with like very small pad layers. This is where like the bulk of the sound comes from. These are all just like tremolo violins and then these massive block chords. When I say massive, I mean fucking massive. Look at this shit. I don't even know how I wrote these. You just kind of like plop notes in on the scale until it sounds good.
Jeez.
Like what let me unmute a bunch of stuff. All right, so yeah, this sounds really good all together. Like if I get rid of any layer, it sounds like shit. The most important one I think is the noise layer. Like without the noise, there is basically no high end in any of these sounds. Like the square leads are being cut off because I have a ton of reverb on them. Yeah, I'm wave shaping it for some reason, EQing it, and like double. This is basically a delay. The reverb is a triangle box, and then I'm just like super verbing it. It's like that has no high end or like super high end. These chords have nothing. These are the same chords I used in another song of mine. I reuse my patches because it's cool. This is from my old song called Ethereal Tides. I call this like a spirit pad because it just kind of like sounds like a little bit. Like when you layer all this stuff together, it just makes this like gigantic sound. Like this isn't the final mix of it because I mix in like separate project files, but like it's pretty good.
I think yeah, it's definitely got a full sound.
I do like no mixing. I don't know. I just kind of like do stuff.
Well, how do you? Well, you kind of actually just answered my question.
Yeah.
Because like the first thing that would come to mind is like how do you kind of blend all these in such a way? Because I would think that like with how layered those chords are, right? Like you would just have like a bunch of mud in between. But I think that at least in this context, it just sounds really pretty.
Yeah, I'm no like mastering engineer. Like I'm still figuring things out myself. It's like I would put some like, this is not even doing anything. This is not even doing anything. This is just turning the volume up. The reverb is just being big. Like, I don't know, like the instruments just sound good together.
Yeah.
It's like the strings all together, like there's not much you need to change. Like, it's figured out. Like, for me, I love string instruments and I feel like they're very underused in like the context of electronic music, which is why I'm doing this and why this sounds so cool in my opinion.
I agree.
Like this, the pads are pretty quiet considering like the whole context. You don't really hear them. They just kind of like add into whatever the strings are missing. Because like the strings, they hear a lot more higher up because they're playing violins at a pretty high octave there.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you combine that with the lead, this is playing like the actual melody, which I don't even know how I wrote this. It's kind of like I just feel it out.
Right.
I wish I could like explain to people how to write things, but it's like you just have to do it, man. Like,
right.
I don't know.
I mean, there's definitely methodical approaches to that kind of stuff, but that's actually something that DMTR and I talked about when I had a short like lesson with him. Is he was like, man, I just like I write everything and I play it live, and I'm like, if I did that, it would be so bad. Yeah. So like one interesting thing that I noticed too is that it seems like on your volume automation, or like maybe you I know that FL has a different way of quote unquote doing side chaining, but I would almost like guess that that's a big way that you're making all this kind of stuff fit, because I think that if these chords were playing off of each other just as in like a complete sustain, I feel like then it would sound muddy, but it looks like you're doing like this alternating sidechain thing that is giving it some movement and some space.
Yeah, I'm like what I usually do is I'll have like a big I just call it drop bus, where I have a fruity balance on there. It's basically just a volume automator, and I will automate the volume in like large sections like this for these big swells. But I also have everything running into another side chain usually. I don't know if I'm doing it in this one, but like in I did a remix of a Soccer Burst song where I had like double side chaining basically, where it's like one very large one that like makes the whole thing flow together, and then one for like clearing up the kicks to make them sound good.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea too, because that saves you the trouble of having to go and apply like the same attack or same envelope to, multiple instruments. You can just use the same volume automation to control all of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And I guess to scroll down a bit, what else is going on? I like super edited these drum samples because I couldn't get them to work how I wanted. Like I think that the drums are really important. Like this rim shot to like tie it all together. It's like I have a ton of layers actually. And they're also being volume automated like individually.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you want to get like that's just a tiny like reverb tail, and that like the hit is even being automated like out of it. So like if you want to make like what I'm talking about, where like you need to have everything like in your world like made or whatever, like you need to put this much attention to detail. Because I remember one of my friends, his name is Orno. He had Puppet notice his music. I don't know if you know what Puppet is. Basically, the guy that releases on Monster Cat. That's like he's a really cool artist. But he found Orno's music and he's like, yeah, dude, it's a pretty good song, but like this kick and the snare just sound like you slapped them in from a Vengeance sample pack. Like if you want your world to, if you want everyone to like buy in your world like this, you have to have a super high attention to detail and like make everything yours.
So, like in the writing process of this, did you already have your space or your environment, your imaginary worlds, kind of?
Oh, absolutely. I've been trying to write a song about the Astral Grove for 2 years. There's so many ruined, bad versions of this song. It is insane. This was
s-
the only one I was able to make that like captured it.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what that is, and like maybe I think that it would be kind of cool for you to because I'm still like interested, of course, in the whole production side of this thing, but I'm also
Yeah.
really interested in why you chose some of these sounds in relation to the space that you're trying to describe sonically.
Okay. So I think it'd be best to start a description of what the Astral Grove is. So basically, in my imaginary D&D world, there's like the material plane, and there's like a ton of dimensions that surround it. One of them was called the Astral Grove, which is like a pocket dimension of a really powerful wizard. It was a trio of wizards, three of them, and one of them had gone rogue and gone evil and corrupted the Astral Grove, sort of. So my players, the one guy is like an apprentice of them. It's like he goes to the Astral Grove and does all this cool stuff. It's like, well, that's what the song is about. It's like all the stuff that he did, basically.
Hmm.
And the Astral Grove itself is like this massive ethereal sort of like floating island that's just surrounded by like a churning purple and like pink sea of lightning and destruction. But like in the center is this beautiful garden made by like fantastical wizards, and that's just the environment that this is in.
Yeah.
And like the sounds that I picked for it, the pad in the beginning is probably like this whole part in the beginning is probably the biggest like representative of it, where it's just like there's like this like big ocean just churning, and it's like I don't even know how to describe this stuff. It's
Yeah.
like it's so cool.
It's so pretty, man. And that's kind of why I wanted to ask, was just because, I think one of the big things that we talk about, I was talking to somebody about it, but the differences between like creative thinking, imagination, and critical thinking, they
Mhm.
all kind of float in the same space of like,
Yeah,
of making choices. I think would be the best way to talk about that. But I'm always curious to see when people talk about describing a place or how they relate their environment to sounds or something. But that just leads me to the next question of like, whenever you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and like you're creating these spaces, are you already like, do you already have that connection of thinking about how it would sound and stuff too, or does that come after like the game is finished or whenever you kind of take a break? Because I know that
yeah.
sometimes D&D games go for like ever.
Oh yeah. So that for me it come all my music comes from a place of nostalgia, sort of, where all these adventures we had are from like a couple of years ago. And I'm also, it's not only about my D&D world as well, because like a lot of my big inspirations are games like Twilight Princess and Hyperlight Drifter, where like Hyperlight Drifter is more recent, but it came out a few years ago. But for like Twilight Princess, I played that as a kid, and like I was so like just captured by the story of it, and like I want to like sort of bring that feeling of like just bring that feeling into my music somehow, like
Yeah, that's really inspiring, and I think that's a great way to. I think it's not the way, but it's a great strategy to help develop the idea of imagination. Right? Is we all have these
yeah,
experiences and like we have memories and stuff, but thinking about trying to place those memories in context and mix it with imagination or mix it with new possibilities, I think is an amazing thing, because like what you're describing to us is simple in nature of like, oh well, I take inspiration from this and this and this, but the actual contextual application of it is so like it's really difficult to develop.
yeah.
I call it
And if
translation theory.
it's interesting. And like if you are sampling like something you love from your childhood, like Twilight Princess for me, when you're like sampling something like that, you're taking a piece of that world and you're sort of like combining it with your own. You're taking all like the emotions and the ideas that it represents, and that's like how I see that. Like when in Soccer versus Deconstructing Nature, he sampled Kingdom Hearts a lot. Like if you play the Kingdom Hearts games and you hear like Dearly Beloved's just entirely ripped and put in the song, you're crying. You're like, oh my god, this is so good.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Sorry for the detour. Please continue.
All right. So I talked about the chord layering. I guess I'll just talk about the narrow basses because sound design channel.
In some cases, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I only have the relevant stuff playing. So I'm going to start talking. I am pretty lazy, I guess you would say, about Neuro stuff. I do everything in the project file, which you probably shouldn't, but I do it.
Yeah.
um,
If your CPU can handle it, sometimes when you are listening to something and you need a sound, sometimes it calls for you to do sound design on the spot.
yeah, I only do sound design on the spot. I like never make my own packs or whatever.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I like it because I hear the sound that I want. I hear everything in my head before I make it. I hear the sound that I want, and I translate it into this, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I think that for like most people, myself included, I rely on happy accidents and then try to make stuff that the sound would fit in as opposed to, oh, I want this specific sound, you know? So if you have the ability to do, for any of you guys out there, if you have the ability to do that kind of sound design, then this might be the direction for you.
Yeah. All right. So this is like these basses are really simple, and they weren't in the song originally. Like at first, there was just an empty space here where these basses are playing, but it's like as I was like developing like and figuring out like I was just like learning new production techniques because like I said, I haven't been in the game that long. Like I'm still learning things. Like I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna learn how to do neural basses. So I just like made these little fills, and it's like they added so much to like the track. And it's like on their own they don't sound like great, but like in the context of everything with like the massive reverb, like
Hmm.
they sound so good. So like I'm just gonna look at the processing. It's probably pretty simple. And by simple I mean two entire things. So this is just I'm just randomly notching it. I'm using Fat Filter Saturn basically as an EQ. Just I might have changed some settings, but like it's pretty arbitrary. I wave shape everything. That's how you make music on FL Studio. Extremely subtle distortion. This is what I think is really cool. I'm ring modulating it
Hmm.
as it's like as it's getting towards the end of it to make it wobble more. And also, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, here's the patch. This is like one of your tutorials, literally, like how to make a neural bass in Serum, and then just
Hmm.
like sine wave, slam it into the tube, give it a little like sausage fucking low pass, and then you're done. Like that's all you. That's literally all you need.
Yeah. It's and for any of you guys that use the kilohertz stuff,
Oh, this is
it's
random.
well, he hold on. So I know that like he describes it as simple, and for somebody that's new to sound design, it is pretty complex because
Yeah,
there are a bunch of things that are kind of layered on that, but at the same time, I think that more so it's not necessarily the number of plugins, but just the process about what he's doing. Would you mind kind of like I know that you just explained to us kind of that stuff, but is there kind of like an overall thematic thing that you're doing? Like, all right, so you're distorting, and then you're doing some EQ, and
yeah.
then what else do
All
you
right,
have going
let me
on?
try to go through my thought process. So like usually, let me just turn all effects off. That's what it sounds like without any effects. It sounds like fucking garbage. Put some effects on, it sounds better, and the second one it sounds better. But like as I'm making this, like you want it to sound good immediately. That this is the biggest problem for me in sound design. You want it to sound good instantly, and you're
Yeah,
like, this sounds bad, so I quit. Don't
right.
do that. You need to keep going. So like I'm like, okay, you notch Nero bases. Cool, I'm doing that. Like that was literally my thought process. Like you just gotta do it.
Right.
And then for this, I probably had a reason for why the Saturn is like this. I know that I don't know why that was like that, but I know
S-
like some of the frequencies in the middle were probably not sounding good. Like if I just turned them up, it probably would sound a lot worse. Yeah, like I just don't like those frequencies.
Yeah, and that's actually a typical practice within like classic like respaces and stuff of scooping out the low mid region. I don't know
Yeah,
what exact frequency you're taking out, but anywhere in that middle sometimes sounds really good. And not only that, but it leaves space for all the other instruments to come in.
yeah. There's stuff going on in that space too that fills it anyways.
Right.
And like the wave shaper, if you're on FL Studio and you want your basses to sound good, just add like a very small wave shaper like whenever you feel like it. That's how you do it. Wave shaper is like it is magical. Believe me.
Do you
I learned that from Soccer Burst.
do you know what a wave shaper does?
Yeah, it like messes with like the waveform, whatever. Like it slams it into it. So like if I did like this, it'll sound like shit. It'll sound like
Right. So for anybody out there that's like wanting to know like what exactly it does, it basically allows you to modify the quiet parts of the sound and the loud parts of the sound. So what you're doing whenever you push that up in that convex curve in that manner is that you're taking all the quiet frequencies on where you have that dot right there, and then you're bringing those levels up. And so that's why it makes everything sound more full.
yeah. Another typical thing that I'll do is I'll just make like this, and I'll just do that and just leave it. But for
Yeah.
whatever reason, for this one sounded good.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of wave shaping. It's almost essential.
Yeah. And I did like really subtle saturator. It's probably not doing that much, but it's just like slowly shaping the sound more and more to what I wanted to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ring modulation, I have like the frequency all the way down as you can put it, so it's just kind of like making the sound cut in and out.
It's
And then
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that that ring mod doesn't have a slower speed on it because like
yeah, I know.
it's still pretty quick, you know, even when
I
you
mean,
kind
I'm
of
basically using it like an LFO tool. It's like
right.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Except it's easier to use, and I just slap it on. Another wave shaper. This one is like more up there. I don't know what this limiter is doing. I don't know why it's here. Whatever. I don't know what this ozone elements is doing either. It was free it was free a while ago, so I downloaded it. Um Wave shaper again, because yeah,
More
I'm band
distortion.
passing. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually really cool. This makes the sound like actually a lot better. It makes it sound like sort of open up over time. This is probably like when I did this, when I added this, I'm like, damn, this sounds good.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that you're automating the resonance as well as the
Yeah, yeah.
frequency. Yeah.
Both of them are being automated. You can see it's the yellow one.
Gotcha. So for any of
And
you
some of
guys
them get
that
like
want that like
crazier.
Cohen sound thing, 2 notches and then hit the frequency band pass on that. But one thing, sorry, I'm not trying to like tell you about your own music,
No,
but
you're fine.
but one thing that just as far as like capturing something that I've noticed that is really important for anybody that's watching this is that on the low end here, he's making sure to only sweep certain frequencies, so that way you're still getting the low end. Because if you were to sweep on the higher end of that, you would get like some really squelchy tonalities on that, and sometimes that can like that to me is the difference between a squelchy neurobass and like having this really nice low end movement on that.
Yeah.
That's really cool that you did that. I just wanted to make a point about that.
Yeah, Cone Sound is one of my biggest inspirations as well. So like I've studied their stuff a lot to try and figure out what they do.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. This is a Maximus with pretty much no settings change except the high end is being like, I think this is basically a wave shaper here, just being slammed. So that's that. And I
Cool.
have a Vocadex for some reason. That's just like, I changed a bunch of settings. It's like unison shifting, pitch shifting, and it's at half volume. So I guess it's basically acting like a chorus
Cool. Yeah, that's neat.
and like a bunch of like arbitrary EQing. I use bad headphones, so I have no right to EQ like this. And then another Maximus. It's I guess just there, and then
Maybe,
it's all going into the side chain.
yeah, that's a cool bass, man. Really big ups on that one.
Yeah. And then one more thing, the MIDI. This was like I have a hard time like I guess randomly making these basses. So like making this able to go like mono in the serum settings, voicing mono and then portamento to do this is like gigantic for me. It does there's no sound as the volume automation. But like every one of these is controlled like really precisely. Like I don't like the what some people do is they'll do like an automation on the pitch shift envelope here.
Hmm.
I even have this like this patch set up to do that because that's probably what I learned in the tutorial. I don't like doing that. And that's why I use Harmor now more than I use Serum because you can use slide notes with Harmor.
So, would you? I guess you're saying that the portamento control on that is a lot easier to control on Harmor compared to Serum.
Yeah, with Harmor, you can use slide notes. Okay, in FL Studio, you can go in the options here, the note properties,
Hmm.
and you can put on slide notes. It only works for like FL Studio native plugins though. So Serum it will not work with, and you have to use this annoying, imprecise slider
Yeah,
here.
the time on that can be relatively finicky, and again, you know, one approach The approach that I do, because I'm lazy and I have the same exact problem that you do, is I just bounce out a long like thing with arbitrary pitch bends. But this is a much more precise way to get the exact movement that you're looking for.
Yeah, and like I said, I usually hear it in my head before it, so I want to make really precise, I guess, like adjustments to everything to get it to sound exactly how I hear it in my head.
It's kind of funny that you call yourself lazy, but like I don't do this in my in my tunes. It's too much work. No, it's really awesome though, and
I don't think I
it's
spent this long on this. I think this is like a 20-hour project, so it's not that bad.
no, it's I mean it sounds great so far.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's a really awesome bass, and I'm glad that you know that you kind of broke that down for us. But what other layers do you have going on? It seems like this project is actually relatively. I mean, and you have a lot of movement that's happening, but as far as like the number of instrumentation that you have, it seems relatively simple.
Yeah, most of it is being carried by these gigantic chords because they're just so large. Like there's not much more I could add to it. To like
We're,
if I tried to add anything else, I'd be going too far. And then
s-
like for me, a big part of my sound is in the ambience. So it's like these other sections are more sparse purposefully because that's just what I like to do.
mhm. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you play the next part for us after the first drop?
Yeah. Actually, if I need to hear the chords to like fade out. Yeah, I'm super proud of this song. It's so good.
Yeah, man. It's so deep. There's like not really any other way to explain it.
Yeah.
It's super emotional. And I don't really like using that word because all music is emotional, you know. But
Yeah.
just as far as like deeply intimate, I think would be the way to kind of describe that. But yeah, man, amazing try. Big ups to you. That was super duper cool.
Hmm.
For the chat, is there anything that while he's in this project that you guys would like to know about or want him to cover? And kind of while they're kind of sorting that thing
Yeah.
out.
There's one more thing I want to talk about actually, because there is another purposeful thing in here that I didn't talk about, and that is the piano outro. So
Yes.
like,
Sorry, I didn't. That I wasn't like wrapping this up. I was just kind of
yeah,
giving them an opportunity. But yeah, please do tell
okay.
us about it.
Yes, like the piano outro is only piano, and like all the big instrumentation just immediately drops out. Because like in the sequence of the album, like when I made this song months ago, like I had the entire track list of the album, pretty much every song title, genre, like everything planned out beforehand. the next song in the line here is a purely piano and orchestral piece. So it's like I wanted all electronic instrumentation just kind of like fade out and go away as this like fades into the next song, which I played on stream for you like last week. It's Heal is the next song after this one.
Yeah.
So it's like I just kind of wanted to bring in the I guess the orchestral instrumentation then.
Right. That's really cool too. And I mean with that, with the whole theme in mind, like did you already have a direct like where at what point did you place this part of the tune? Like was it when you already had an idea for the next one, or were you like, all right, I'm gonna write this outro and then I'm gonna use this outro for the next song?
I have every song probably that I've written for the past 2 years sort of planned out like thematically.
Thematically.
So like I like I always I'm like when I'm writing this songs, it's like I know I want to do this kind of song and I want to do this kind of song. But
Yeah.
this one I'm like I want to do an orchestral song and I'm like, all right, so how do I want this to fade into the next song? So I'm like, I'll just do a piano outro, whatever. That's lazy and it sounds good. So that's what I did.
I
Like it's arbitrary. It's also not at the same time. That's how it is.
That's yeah, I wouldn't say it's arbitrary. It's just amazing that you're able to kind of implement that idea
Yeah.
into the next one. Because for me, I'm always trying to figure out just how to fucking finish the song. So Avin has a question. He says, "What is your essential treatment for your strings as far as placement, wideness, general effects?"
Hmm. All right, so my strings. Let me find where they are routed. Sent here. So with strings, I pretty much do the same thing every single time, and that is Valhalla Room, the go-to.
Right.
You crank up the mix usually about like 70%, depending on like what the song I'm doing, like up or down, whatever. And it's just like, damn, that sounds good. And then like if you just write them in an intelligent way, like I don't mean intelligent like being snobby or anything, but like if you just write them like whatever purpose they need in the track, you don't need to like EQ them or anything. Like the instrument's figured out. Like they've stayed the same for like 200 years. It's nothing. You don't have to do very much.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that I'm glad that you brought up. I was gonna say, like with orchestral music, depending on how you write them, back in the day we didn't have like EQs and stuff. It was all
Yeah,
about like the treatment or the space of the treatment, and every piece of orchestra was like placed for a particular reason. So when you're keeping that in mind, if that's like the main thing that's happening within that, how do I say? If that's the main thing that's happening within your tune, you don't really need to do a lot to it, unless if you're trying to
yeah,
mix it in with those electronic things. I think in my tune, My Beloved, I actually did the same thing with like zero EQ on it, just made it a little bit wider because why you don't need to, you know what
yeah.
I mean?
If you EQ it, somebody might notice. It's like, and they'd be like, "Why do the strings sound weird?"
Well, I
Like you
guess
don't want to do that.
yeah, I guess like as far as if you want, hold on, let's back up for a second. If you
Yeah,
want your strings to sound as natural as possible, then I think that you don't want to do too much to them, right? I think that's fair to
yeah,
say. But of course, there's always the creative choice of like throwing like a vocoder on them or something, creating a different instrument out of them. But I think that especially for this tune, you wanted to just go with really wide and like very pretty strings, if that's
yeah.
fair to say.
Something I've done before is bit crushing my strings and like automating that around. That is something really cool you can do to get a really different kind of feel to it.
Interesting. Did you, as far as like your stereo placement on this, did you do any kind of particular panning, or did you just use the stock? Like, is it just kind of there in the stereo field where it?
Yeah, I just use whatever they had set for it. I actually only use Contact Factory for my strings, so
Can you,
it's kind of like basic.
any chance that you could show us that quickly, just for some context?
Yeah, this is what it looks like. Literally my only library.
Violin ensemble and tremolo. So there you go. You don't need crazy
There you
plugins.
go. And then what I used to use before was Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess sound fonts. I would
Hmm.
take the strings from there. If you just reverb them, they sound pretty good. They sound good enough. And then I would like layer it with Labs strings. I'm using Labs piano in this somewhere. I don't
Dude,
know where it is.
Labs is awesome.
Yeah, here it is, Labs. Download this if you don't have it.
It's free. Go get it from Spitfire Audio. So, yeah, regarding all this stuff, one other question that I have that we kind of talked about with your heel tune, is we were talking about making your stuff sound a little bit more realistic. And
Hmm.
one particular thing that you talked about was the volume automation, which I think that you've shown us, and thank you for doing that because that's going to affect how I write musical pieces. But one thing that you also talked about was tempo automation.
Yeah, that's something I just learned really recently. I'm friends with a lot of people that make artcore music. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a genre where it's like orchestral music crossed with drum and bass, crossed with Japanese rhythm music, rhythm game music, and it's like they all have like a really different and weird perspective compared to like anyone in our community. It's like I'm talking to this like really like classically trained producer that makes video game soundtracks and shit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, if you automate the tempo in like a piano or like string piece, it sounds really cool." I'm like, "What do you mean automate the tempo?" He's like, "Just randomly make some dips here and there," and it's like, "Okay, I'll do that," and it's like it sounds really really good.
Wow. Do you have any potential examples of that you could show us?
I don't know. I can't dig the file out, but like there's like a piano piece. I could drop it in the Discord later. But like I
Okay.
have a piano thing where I'm automating the tempo pretty much the whole time, but I could try to find it.
Hold on. To make things a little bit more simple, and if it's all right with you, could you potentially just show us like a theoretical tempo automation, maybe on your outro, since that's all piano?
Oh yeah, that works.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. It's like literally what you do is you're like, okay, here's the tempo, and then you make a dot here, copy value from the left one, so it's the same value over here, and then you just go click down a little bit. The lower you go, the more noticeable it is. It's really low right now.
That's so
I
interesting.
usually want to do like more subtle things. Like this is at 21% or whatever. This is at 50, I think. Like I would dip it down like maybe 1 or 2%. Like there, it's only dropping by like 5 BPM, but like it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for showing us this because like the thing about it, so Visnode asked the question of wouldn't tempo automation mess with the samples at times, but with this in particular, when he's playing this, it's only orchestral instruments that are in MIDI. So,
Yep. That's my
um,
trick. I don't use samples, get owned.
I mean the the tape noise and the ambience on the bottom is something that's a background layer, so it shouldn't be too prominent. But
Yeah, like
it,
really, this could like not even exist. It's so I think it's so quiet. Like it's really subtle.
But the other thing too, I don't know if you guys know who Audica is, but they actually have a video of them actually automating the tempo of the samples with some of their song or with one of their songs, Execute Extinction, where they actually do that in context. So it can mess with it, but sometimes that actually gives you a desirable result. It's just I think that in controlling this in this manner, I think it's a lot easier to work with as opposed to like worrying about the samples in that case.
Yeah.
If that's fair to say. Sorry, I just took that.
No, that was cool.
Yeah, that's super cool though, and I guess like having those like slight dips and stuff. I was gonna also say like our perception doesn't change because we're not worried about the time. We're looking at the next chord or the next the next thing. So that's so interesting to me and something I'm excited to try personally.
Yeah. Because like real musicians don't play perfectly in time. Like every single note hitting exactly on the 120 BPM. Like you just have to like think in context, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And like hypothetically speaking, like how often would you kind of like implement something like that? Just like maybe every 4 bars, or like do you have a systematically, or you're just like click, 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 click? How does that sound?
Yeah, just pretty much click, click, click. Like you don't want it to drag on, but you also don't like. I don't, you just gotta like feel it out.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like the golden rule. But
Yeah.
you'll have to forgive me. I'm so analytical with things at times that I'm just like, well,
No, it's
you
good.
know, do you do it every second bar, or do you do it every
Yeah.
20?
You
It's just how I
just gotta
think.
feel the emotion in it, I guess.
Yeah,
Because like a big I know I wouldn't say problem, but like a thing that I was learning when I was like starting out. Because like I really like ambient music, but it's like, how do you make it not drag out? And like you got to be really honest with yourself. I'm like, is this shit boring? And it's like, it's like, yeah, I think it is. I got to add more here. Like that's just how you got to be.
right.
Like at other times, then you could be like purposefully, where it's like, yeah, the instrumentation is really sparse here because I really want this melody to shine through. Like you have to like pick and choose.
Yeah, it's
It's like
man.
a lot of new artists when they'll have something, they'll have like this minute-long buildup. It's just like a pad, and it's like, dude, you gotta like you gotta ask yourself like, would I listen to this? And it's like, I don't know. Like you said something earlier about like critical thinking or whatever. You gotta like do that to yourself. You gotta be like, would I listen to this if it wasn't mine? Or like, is this actually good? You need to ask yourself that. And it's like, if not, then it's like, keep working, dude. You can get there.
Yeah, I totally agree. To an extent too. There's a fine balance, I believe, between that because some of us are so critical of our music. You know, it's like
Yeah.
if there's nothing beyond, and you put 100% into it, then you are. I think it's important to accept that as far as your production level, you are where you are. As opposed to trying to be somewhere or be somebody else. Like you're only as good as you are in the moment. That's something that we say in martial arts class all the time. So,
That's deep.
but at the same time, if you feel like there's something more that you can do, then you should always do it because you're trying to, when you put something out, you're trying to represent you. And if you feel like there's something within there that's not there, that's missing, then I think it's important to take that journey and really explore that for yourself of what you want to communicate. Sorry. So
Good.
so with that, man, like this is such a cool like project. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with this, or are there any other questions that we can answer in the chat before we kind of talk about some other arbitrary things?
I guess I could talk more about. I didn't mention this automation, which I think is really funny and interesting. It is this like extremely strange and jagged automation, and it's automating these. I think it's these strings. Yeah, it's like it's automating this like massive block of string chords. I guess it's not massive, but it's a decent block. Like I'm basically side chaining them. It's probably pretty quiet. I don't know if you could really hear that well. I could just like, okay, now it's loud, but like they're very subtly in the background, but like they're the only real high end, and it's like it really adds a lot to this section. Like just
Yeah.
doing little things like this does so much.
It's
Like you don't really hear them in there at first, but it's like by this point they're starting to come in. It's like damn, that's how you do
yeah, and now that you pointed out, like I noticed it a lot more and it really helps the fullness of the frequency spectrum. But it's
it.
kind of cool too that you didn't just kind of like slap that on. You also gave it some movement. Heaven says, "Where are the artcore people?" And I do think that you have some people to shout out too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. One of my boys is in here. Check out Viznode. He is a god. Also, Polyphon and Sleepless. They are very good people that make very cool music.
Aw, yeah, cool, man. Welcome, Viznode. I don't think that I've seen you here before, but welcome to the channel. Glad that you can make it. What up, Tim Terrell? Welcome as well. Glad that you guys can make it. But yeah, if I think after I would love it if you guys are here and you guys are part of Aspects community, I would love for you guys to say hello in my Discord and post your stuff because we're always looking to hear from new artists and always looking to have new perspectives. For the most part, like most of my community is like the neuro community of like people that are trying to make the craziest basses and stuff. So I always appreciate when somebody comes in and they have something very different.
Yeah.
And we're diversifying pretty well, but I really believe in this community thing that we've all started, and there's a lot of good people out here.
Yeah. I actually like started out wanting to make really hard. I went through a lot of stages, and one of them was trying to make really hard neuro music. And it's like I just sort of like combined everything because like at first I'm like I don't want to make orchestral music. It's boring. No one wants to listen to it. I don't want to make ambient music. Who the fuck wants to listen to ambient music?
I
But then like
would.
I just realized I'm like, why don't I just combine everything I like? Like why not? And that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and why should you feel like you have to? I think like a thought process between people is like, all right, well, first, if I want to combine these, I need to learn how to make neuro, and then I need to learn how to make ambient, and then after I know how to
Yeah.
make those two. But the thing that we have to keep in mind whenever we're developing is that it's like, okay, so if you learn to play piano, then you perceive music as a pianist. If you learn to play guitar, then you perceive music as a guitarist. So that's one of those like not necessarily traps, but just one of those potential perspectives that we gain, and sometimes like it's hard for us to change those perspectives of the in and out. So I actually think that your approach to wanting to do everything at once as opposed to trying to figure out all these different things is a great way to do this because you know why do you have to master something when in the form of art, like there's no such thing as mastery in the first place? As far as
Yep.
I'm concerned, I don't believe in like, oh, I'm a master or whatever, because that means that you can't get better anymore.
Yeah, no, it's impossible.
Right.
Literally,
Cool.
unless you're Porter Robinson, that's the only exception to me.
I mean, there's, I mean, I do believe in like the idea of like working towards mastery or whatever, but I guess I guess as far as me, like I always want the mountain to keep getting higher because I never want to be done. I always want to
Yeah,
be able to get better because it's just then what? Like
absolutely.
imagine if you got as good as you can be and that's it.
Yeah, that sucked. For me, like the fun in it is learning and improving.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like the most rewarding thing is when it pays off of like, man, remember where I was 2 years ago and what I'm doing now? It's like night and day. And I'm actually curious to
Yeah.
hear like what your first song was, compared to what you're doing now, especially since you're so new to producing and like I almost feel like you haven't even had any time to reflect on like your earlier stuff because you're already making things that are so good now before like you just it's
I have some early aspect music.
it's
Let me see what I can do. I'll have to go to my SoundCloud and download this one. Cause like I released my first song as Aspect not even a year ago. Yeah, 10 months ago, March 29th, 2019 was the very first song I released as Aspect. Let me try to find the extreme first one. I know Viznote has heard this, but not a lot of people have. Okay, how can I download this? God, this song. So yeah, I'm just gonna play some of it. This was me a year ago. So that was when I realized I wanted to be like Aspect, I guess. And before that, I was making future bass, so I just made like I would make songs like this. This was 2 years ago. Yeah, that was that.
It's interesting. I can definitely see, like, now that you've shown us that, which thank you, by the way, because some
Yeah,
people
no
are
problem.
really embarrassed of, like, which I hope that you're not, because all this
No, I
stuff's,
laugh at it. I laugh at it.
like, even still, like, like, I can tell that those are beginning stages, but they still show a lot of promise, and, like, how they reflect your music today is a very, like, clear vision with this, and it's still really cool. Sleepy, you did, but don't worry because this is going to go on YouTube, assuming that's okay. If anything, at the very least there will be a vodcast on here. I would like to
Yeah.
put this on YouTube though. I would like to get your name out there and kind of just use my little humble little YouTube channel to kind of get some of you guys noticed.
Dude, you got a following. You get some views sometimes.
Some videos, yeah. I don't really, it's very like bipolar and all that, but really like I don't care about that per se.
Yeah.
It's more so just about building and learning from each other. And I think that now, because I've spent a lot of time doing like especially like neurobase and all that stuff, but having a different artist and being able to highlight some of you guys is I think going to be a really good thing, not only for you guys but for anybody out there that's trying to learn more about music.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, that was so cool. There's a ton of information and stuff to dig through with this, and again, it's one of the things that I still like am most impressive or most impressed by is for one how long you've been producing, but two like how again relatively simple this project actually is. It doesn't sound
Yeah,
simple.
simple is like a funny word to describe this because like if I saw this a year ago, my mind would explode.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so I'm sorry guys. And when I say simple, like most of my tracks have like 150 plus tracks.
yeah,
Um whereas this has, 30,
yeah,
50,
like 30, maybe 40,
30, maybe 40.
32,
Yeah.
32.
32 tracks, man, and like it's just so full and rich and is full of life, and that's really inspiring to like really make the most out of this. So when can we expect like this to be released or to be done, or like when can we buy it or download it, or like what's
Yeah.
what's up with
So
this?
this album definitely done by March. I will set it. I will be setting a date very soon, scarily soon for me because I have to finish this shit. But like, yeah, expect to hear more from me very soon.
Cool, man. I mean, I'm so glad that you introduced yourself to me and came into my channel, and I'm so glad that we were able to do this. For you,
Yeah.
this is for me as well, but also for the community. Is there anything else that you kind of want to cover before we let you go? We there was
I think I'm done with this project file. If you got any more questions, hit me. I love answering them.
Yeah. Let's just take a couple moments to see if anybody has any questions. DMCR says, "Let's go, big ups aspect," which I agree, man. This is going to be a big album, I think, and it's going to be really really cool, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to listening to it. Um, yeah, it's like even with the song that you were working on with like Heal and all that, it's going to be so musically driven, and I love when people combine the electronic aspect of that with with the classical approach to music. It's something that I don't really
Yeah.
feel like people do enough, honestly.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm doing it. And people are enjoying it. And it's unbelievable that people actually enjoy this shit. It's like, damn.
Do you have any collaborations that you're working on with anybody?
Yeah, I'm working with I have a plan to do a whole ass EP with Viznode pretty soon, but other than that, I tend to work alone.
Yeah.
Only recently have
It's
I not.
it's I think that like the idea of collaboration is really exciting, but like the effort and like for a vision to line up for a collaboration to actually like finish is very difficult.
Oh, it's hard, yeah.
But at the same time,
I
it's
keep trying to collab with one of my friends and like it just it's nothing against him, but like every single time we get like halfway in the track and it's like, all right, this ain't working anymore. Let's trash this. And it's just like just the vision doesn't match up.
yeah, and that's like I think that it's important to like make that mental note of like that's okay. Like just because somebody
Yeah.
starts a collaboration or you two start a collaboration with each other or whatever, like the idea of it has to become something and it has to be finished, I think is a little bit far fetched. I mean, even like for me personally, for me to finish a track on my own, like we have to realize that within the thousands of decisions that we make, so much has to go right for something to be complete.
Yeah.
And when you add another element in that, especially if you're not used to it, it's almost like honestly, I feel like every finished song that someone says this is done is like a miracle because I mean, I don't know about you, but how many songs have you trashed?
So many.
It-
But like the way I produce is like I'll get rid of something, but like it's not like dead forever. Like I always steal ideas from my own tracks like over and over again. Like how I said I made like 20 different Astral Groves that like none of them worked. Like I could even try to pull some of them out. But like a lot of them use the same ideas where it's like big pad sound, strings on top, piano, whatever. But like I'll trash something and be like, all right, I'm gonna save that for later. That's a cool idea. Like if you're producing like and you're just beginning out, just like literally just make a ton of ideas and then take those ideas and combine them into one after a while. That's all you got to do. That's how you make a song, buddy. Like, all right, you're done.
Yeah, I for sure. I mean, and I'm guilty of this because I've made a video about this from the past. But like, if you have a project, there's usually always something that is worth keeping. So if you can stem that out, or you can save the patch, or you can save even
Yeah.
like the MIDI file or whatever, because it's a good melody or chord progression, then you are constantly giving yourself more material to work with. The ideology of like as when you open a DAW and you start a song, it has to like do like finished is I don't know about you, but to me it's just unrealistic.
Yeah. That it's extremely rare if I open the DAW and just like make the song. It doesn't happen. Like I'll just like make random stuff and then combine them later.
Right.
Like it took me so long to realize that workflow.
It's it's a tough realization, and it almost like I feel like music in its own way is very unique in that sense because that's like the one thing. And I say this because I've dabbled in like visual media of like drawing or like video editing or something, you know, like when you upload it, you put the project in and then you start it from finish and then it's like it becomes done, right? But
Yeah.
with music in particular, there's so many like different versions and stuff that we bounce out and all that stuff that it just to me that's one thing that makes it unique. I guess if you're a concept artist, that's different, but that's that's a concept. You know what I mean? We don't I don't make music to build concepts. I make music to like make tracks.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess in your case, like I know I sent you that thing a few days ago, which was a concept, but I had the intention from its entirety of like, no, I'll never release this, or I don't expect this to be used. It's just like here's an idea. So
Yeah, and it gave me ideas. It was good.
good. I'm glad. I know that it was stale compared to what you got going on here, but hopefully, but it's more about like just here's an idea and do that's what I had in mind in some case or another. But yeah, man. I guess I've got nothing else as far as what's going on. I really just want to take the time to thank you for being on my stream and for giving us your voice and your project and sharing some of your information with us. Do you have any questions for me by any means or by a chance
Oh
that
shit.
I know I always do that.
No, I'm cool. I don't got anything.
Cool, man. And that's totally fine too. I always just want to make sure that within all these podcasts and stuff that it's always an open discussion. It's never
Yeah.
like I'm teaching you or like, just giving me everything or whatever.
Yeah,
I
I'm,
want
I'm
to
sharing. I'm sharing to the people right now. I want these young, like, aspiring producers to figure out how they want to do their shit.
yeah, same. I want us all to get better together, not just, everybody one-upping each other or something.
Yeah, I don't want all the glory for me
Me neither,
or you.
me neither. It doesn't that's a very short journey. I know, right? Psychotics is like young. You're 20.
Yeah,
um, but yeah, you're going
I'm a
places, man.
boomer. I'm old.
Stick with it, man. Stop.
I'm gonna.
Stop. Stop.
No, I
Stop.
will never stop. I don't care. Like I said, I'm in college for chemical engineering, so like sometimes it's hard to find time for music, but like I don't care. Like when I do get the time, I make sure I use it well. Like
Yeah.
when I'm in my chemical engineering career or whatever, I got money. Then my SoundCloud's popping. I got like 20,000 followers. I'm like, I'm gonna go tour for a bit. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know
Right.
what's gonna happen.
Oh, well, but that actually brings up one more thing. I was wondering if by chance you had any advice to our viewers and myself of like, do you have any creative strategies of like getting around like beat block or like if something's not working or, um,
Yeah. Number one, if you're stuck, take a break. Just don't think about it for a week. If you're still not working, like just start playing like video games or something and like try to get inspired. Like watch anime, do something. Like you got to find something to inspire you. And like just like I said earlier, like when you steal something or not steal, but like sample or borrow ideas from, you're taking that emotion. So like start with a feeling or start with like a place and just start like doing stuff, man. I don't know. That's
yeah,
how I do it.
makes sense. I think like one perspective to take on that too is for one, allowing yourself or putting yourself in a position to where you can be easily inspired. I'm getting ready to eat my own words, by the way, because I've been in this like quote unquote creative block for fucking forever. But theoretically, uh, allowing yourself to be easily inspired, and then conceptualizing what the inspiration actually is. As opposed to just hearing a certain sound of
Yeah.
like, oh, that bass, I need to make that bass. Of like being aware with the emotion or with the feeling or with identifying what that inspiration is. Maybe it's the drum rhythm that you hear or maybe it's the way that the bass is being voiced or whatever to kind of take those ideas because maybe it won't help you finish a track but maybe it will help you figure out how to write another part of another tune.
Yeah. And that going off that as well, when for me, what inspires me a lot, usually I have an artist who's like the same guy I go to every time. And like for some reason, I don't know how, but he just gets me. It's like I'll send him like a bunch of my music, a bunch of my ideas, and he'll just make beautiful art. And it's like that when I see that, I'm like, that's it. Like, this is what I want. This is like my world. And like, it feels fully realized, and like it inspires me to finish shit then.
Wait, so can you reiterate a second?
Yeah.
Did you just say that you send someone music and they make visual art off of that, or
Yeah, like there's this guy on Reddit. He's not like on Twitter or anything. I just found him. I'll send him my music, pay him $15, and he makes my art. And he is so amazing. I should
wow?
shout him out. I wish he had something.
Yeah, is he on like Fiverr or something,
No,
or
he does stuff only on Reddit, and it's
only on
like
Reddit? If
he's
you
my artist though. Nobody else can have him. No, I'm just kidding.
well, I mean, I understand that sentiment.
No,
But
I'm kidding.
no, yeah, I mean I get it, but maybe you can ask him if he opens up or something, if he would like us to, or if he would like to be shared, and because maybe that could be something that the rest of you all could be interested in, or whatever. I always
Yeah, like, I
appreciate
don't know if you want
business.
to like. I don't know how I could do it, but I want to show off the art I have for Light Spirit. It's just on my SoundCloud,
You can
and like,
just
can
um
I just like screen share?
yeah, so when you hit screen share, just go to the either the window or the desktop.
Yeah, I found it.
I just said desktop.
That's desktop. Like, this is the artwork this guy put out. Like, he just listened to my music and he made this art, and it's like, goddamn, like this is exactly what I want to
Wow.
do. So yeah, art is extremely important in my opinion to, oh, I'm on the stream now and it's making an infinite loop. But like, art is what I think is most important to, I sort of like conceptualize what you're making.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if you were here yesterday on stream, but I was talking about taking a picture and doing the sound design to that. But it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool to see that. It's kind of cool to see both directions. Of he heard your song and made a visual piece out of that, but perhaps this visual piece that you had was some kind of reflection of what you had in your head.
Yeah, it definitely was. It's like
Um,
the thing that I sent him a massive document of information because like, just to like help explain how like meticulous I am like in creating this stuff. Like, I have a track list outline, a story I've written for it. Now I have the art there, but there used to be a whole bunch of like inspiration images. Like, that is all part of my creative process, and all this has been in the works for over 2 years because my first album, Visions, are I'm dumping my subtle lore. This song, Vision Light. This was like the precursor to Light Spirit. I had this shit planned out for a very long time.
wow, that's really awesome, and it's really cool to see like how you, I guess, like documented um a concept or like an album idea, right? And then like you wrote out
Yeah.
the track names and you're like, oh, well, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this, because that kind of like how we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast of like, it's not just the music, like you're literally writing stories and you have something beyond that. Um,
Yep.
I don't know how you feel about this, but maybe something that could be kind of cool whenever you sell an album is to create a short story or a short like excerpt or passage or something that goes along with
Yeah.
each tune. I
I
don't
was thinking
know.
of doing that. I have like a little blurb between in the SoundCloud descriptions right now to like for each song. Like this one, "A Blinding Light Envelops the World." Like, they just sort of advance the story,
Yeah, for
and like
sure.
all of them have that.
And I guess like I say that like with caution though, because I almost wonder how much um I wonder how much reservation you may or may not have for that because of like wanting somebody else to maybe have the open means of interpretation. Because I
Yeah,
guess that's why I don't do that stuff a lot, because I want people to be able to like take what they want out of it.
they're
But
all like purposefully vague.
yeah. So that's a really cool thing that you can kind of, or I guess like we can all kind of like borrow off of as far as like creating these stories, because that's kind of like, that's honestly one of the biggest reasons why I wanted you to come on the stream, is because I think that our visions of storytelling with music is very similar in that way.
Yeah, this is what like inspired me the most. Like the way that Zuckerberg does this. Like the way that this contributes. Like, most people don't pop open and read the description, but like the 1 out of like 10 people or whatever that read this, like, and read like that care about this like extra lore or whatever, like that makes a big difference to them. It made a big difference to me. Like, he wrote a whole massive story with this. I think he did it for Harp Singer too, his other album. Like, he wrote a big poem to go with it, and it's like that all that adds a lot in my opinion.
Yeah. Are there any resources aside from Sakura versus actual music that you can point us to?
Yeah.
Like, do they have like a YouTube that has like tutorials, or is there something that we can?
Unfortunately, she used to have a YouTube, but all the videos are taken down now.
Oh, really? That's
I
unfortunate.
kind of want to I wouldn't say replace it, but like I want to sort of like start my own thing, try and help similar people. Because
Yeah.
like I've had the idea for a long time to make a YouTube, but like I felt like I had to sort of like earn that right by making music first, and yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. So like
I
when
mean,
my album releases, I'll have some authority, in my opinion, to teach people.
honestly, man, like if you believe in your craft and it's for the right reason, then it the music it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's teaching and then actually like having the ability to make music are two different skill sets. That's something that my instructor from martial arts taught me a long time ago. Is like you can be the most like awesome, martial artist and throw the greatest punches or whatever, but if you're a crap teacher, then it doesn't. None of that matters. So,
Hmm.
I think that like I think that as long as you are honest and you're earnest rather about what you're making and stuff, then there's nobody can tell you otherwise. And besides, like I have this like parody idea that I'm going to do at some point that I was telling you about of like, making fun of the nature of tutorials online of like, hey bro,
Yeah.
like check out this and I'm gonna show you how to make the sound, but you gotta sub to me first and then you know what I mean? Just like as like
Yeah.
a
Gotta make some banger bases out here. Like I don't know, like
yeah, and it just sounds like crap. It's like and it's
it just
like
sounds like
totally
it's like all right. It sounds all right.
yeah. So, but I think that you should, especially if you feel like you have something to share. And I think that at some point, I would like for you, to be able to express your teachings in the way that you feel. Because right now, I know that we're doing this together, but I want you to be able to be your own teacher
Yeah,
as well. Because I know that I co-signed a lot of things that you said today. I apologize. I do that by nature.
it's fine. You're cool.
But yeah, man, thanks so much. I had a really good time today, and like I said, if you have anything else, then we can always continue this chat in the Discord and stuff. And for the
Hmm.
viewers and stuff, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. I think that it was really awesome. Do you have anything else or any final thoughts?
I'm pretty much done. Go
Cool.
follow my boy Viznode. That's all you got to do. Follow me, then follow Viznode if you're not following us. Drop your link. I know you're in the chat.
Yeah, feel free to, if you're still here, feel free to link your SoundCloud and we'll all go take a look. I saw that he joined the Discord, so thanks for doing that. Welcome to the
Hmm.
community. I'll be sure to welcome you on there as well. But yeah, man, we're really looking forward to your album. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me in the chat on doing this. And I guess as soon as it's up on YouTube, then I'll send that to you and we can kind of talk further. Maybe we can do this again sometime, in the
Yeah,
future if you want to discuss something else.
yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for having me, man. This is fun.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. Chat, thank you guys. I think that we'll probably call it a day from here, but that was awesome, man. I'll see you later.
Yep. See you, man.
For the rest of you guys, I had a great time today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you guys. Thanks for the follow this node. I hope that you guys learned as much as I did today and got inspired to make some of the stuff that he does because yeah, he's young, but he's making some really cool stuff. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Tomorrow we'll be working on the tune that I've been working on for flipping ever, and yeah, enjoy. This will be up sometime later today or tomorrow. Thank you guys. Much love and join the Discord. See ya.